Hey, welcome to Foreign in the Philippines, and we're looking at giving out a little information about, well, not so much technical information about the earthquake situation, but just generally about living in an area of the world that has earthquakes. Well, I actually came for some years ago. I moved, well, let me see, 1992 I moved out to California, and 1992, in case you don't know, was the, I believe it was called the Northridge earthquake. And back then I just had a little kid, had my son Luke, and he had just had his 6th birthday. And we were staying. We had a room, and it was in the morning, and strangest experience. We're lying in bed, and suddenly the bed started going like this. So I look over at my son and say, "Oh, this must be an earthquake." So as it proceeded, I rolled him out of bed, and we rolled under this built-in desk, and we stayed in there, and then he wanted to get out, and then I said, "I don't think so." And it went on. The thing about earthquakes is that they seem to go on for a long time, but they don't actually. In fact, I've actually been in places in California. Once in McDonald's down near the coast, and it sort of just went snap, and then it was done. But in that one snap, it can do quite a bit of damage, and I got kind of used to the fact that there were little shakes. Then we moved a little bit later, and we went into a group of townhomes that were built around a swimming pool, and we had a little earthquake there as well. This was, I think, about a couple of years after the earthquake at Northridge in 1992, and then I think a couple of years after that there was quite a big earthquake up in the 7 point something, and that shook that little collection of 64 townhomes. And what it did was that it just jumped everything, and it emptied several thousand gallons of water out of the swimming pool. Okay, because the swimming pool, if you imagine the swimming pool like this, and it went whoop and just dumped the water out. So I actually made some money on that, because they employed me to repair some of the cracks in various parts of the complex. But earthquakes have been something of a part of my life on important events. One, as I said, Northridge, where we went and had just arrived, and were only there for a week or 2 weeks, and then we had that one. And then another one a couple of years later, there was one there, and there were several others, and I remember roaming the streets after that second one, and looking at the damage. People were sleeping out in the open in the middle of the centre reservation of these dual carriageway roads, and they were out there. People came out of their homes. They didn't want to go back in because they might be injured, and there were injuries there, and there were big sources of damage. We were very close out in Silmar, and entire sections of the freeway had just been dumped. So where it was like this, and it just went and collapsed. And that caused endless problems and delays for a lot of people that were living on the other side of that freeway. So the next big earthquake for me was and I'm doing all of this now because we're talking about personal experiences of earthquakes rather than the fact that we have been very lucky. I didn't feel a thing, and there was that one that happened the first time, which was up on the other side of Manila and around Manila, which has caused a lot of problems and some injuries and I think deaths. And then the other one was a 6-point something out in Leyte, which is a little closer to home. Well, yeah. Now there was one very big earthquake that did a lot of damage on Bohol, which Bohol has only just started to recover from. And that was, oh, I thought I heard Beth coming down downstairs, but apparently she's so flaked out. So that was a big source of damage, and I know that there are people still, even now, from I think it was about 6, maybe 7 years ago, and the churches have just been built, but there are still very poor people who are living in tents, and there are people whose beautiful homes of OFWs who had worked very, very, very hard in foreign countries and sent the money home and had that mansion built so that they could retire in comfort and style, and it's been ruined. There's one that we see on the way to Tagbilaran, even on the way to Tubigon, and it must have been the most beautiful home, and it was shaken. And if you imagine the structure, the basic structure, and the bottom just moves that way, so as it moves, the rest of it is slow in catching up, and that's where you get terrific damage. That's where columns break, even the ones that are done to the highest spec. Mother Nature, she wields a club, and when she does, you get bashed. Now, for the last one, the last two even, these two that have just happened, I know that there are quite a few fatalities from the last one, and it's not up in triple digits yet, and we'll pray that that doesn't happen. But as far as those who are following this blog, Beth and myself are safe, talking selfishly now, I know, but for those who are interested in knowing, all of our family, our extended family, for people in this area, in this community that you may have been following for a number of months or possibly years, and we haven't felt anything at all. We seem to lead a charmed life up here on the hill, because we get all kinds of warnings about typhoons, and there's going to be a big typhoon and it's coming through, and we've been warned of super typhoons, you know, the ones that are just going to rip the roof off everything, and we haven't been touched. What usually happens is that it just seems to veer off. Here we are like this, and it veers off, but it just takes the edge, and we get a lot of rattling roofs and a lot of wind for a while, usually for as little as 15 or 20 minutes, and then it's gone, because it's traveling at quite a speed, so it doesn't delay. Comes in, does its damage, and it leaves. And we've been most fortunate, because what happens is it doesn't take much actually to take a roof off, or to take enough of a roof off that the rain that follows ruins the rest. Now people ask me, they know that I built my house myself. I mean myself, single-handed. I built it out of metal stud, and people say, yeah, well, may look good, but will it stand a typhoon? Will any house stand a typhoon? Will any house stand an earthquake? Depends on a lot of things. And when I see some of the grand houses on the way to Tagbilaran that have been ruined, out here now, talking about the specification to which houses are built, I know that a lot of expats criticize the way that houses are built, and I have seen that the house is built to one specification and the roof is actually made of welded steel. So they get up there with their welding stuff and they have the pieces handed up to them, and they actually build the roof in situ. So here we are, and the roof goes up and the pieces go in and the rafters go in and the cross pieces go in and everything gets welded together. And some of the houses that I used to see that are being cleaned up now, the roof was so well made that it just stayed like this, and underneath everything collapsed and the roof sort of just went like that, intact, which was an irony. You think about it, you're talking about a roof over your head, and there you are, you've still got a roof over your head, but you're too afraid to go in and stand in the house underneath it. So we're hoping that things will not get worse. We're hoping that people will not lose their lives or get injured by aftershocks, and we know about those too. And as a note of interest, when first I came to Cebu really actually to look at whether I could find a house that I could afford and move here. And that was why I came to Cebu, and I came for 5 days. And during that time I made contact with someone very important, and we did the usual. It's a story that has been repeated many times. We did the usual of exchanging a few texts, and then we realized that if I was leaving, we should meet. And back then we both thought the same thing, different ends of the spectrum. I thought that she was too young and she thought I was too old. But we met, and the impact of meeting was, if you like, it was marked by the fact that that day there had been an earthquake, and I was in a store when that happened, and then suddenly things started to move about, and I wasn't quite so steady on my feet because the ground was moving and things were falling off shelves. Now I remember grabbing the young girl behind the counter and rushing her outside. We got outside, and when we got outside, the huge cables, power cables, were all waving about, and the side of the building was waving. A few things were dropping, and we were right near an overpass, and for a few moments there it really was very scary. We didn't know. There is no, almost, if you're in a city, there's no way you can run. If you're not near an open park, there's no way you can run. You cannot get away. And for a moment you're just there helpless, and the ground is moving. If you're in a place where it can drop, better be careful, and getting under a desk isn't going to do it, I can tell you, because the way that houses are built here, and they have concrete, they have concrete assemblies which are all put together, and then they're infilled with hollow block which has virtually no strength to it at all. So it's a tough one to decide where can you run? And the answer is not many places. Would you be safe in a car? Would you be safer out of it? What do you do? And it does get down to a bit of fatalism, you know. If it's your time, boy, you can run anywhere you want to, and the old Grim Reaper will find you. So this is a foreigner in the Philippines. Thanks for looking at our little update on how the earthquake has affected us, or not. Actually not, isn't it? But it's affected a lot of people, and your prayers are much appreciated for those, though we actually don't know those people ourselves. So, thanks for being with us. Bye for now.